All right, let's do some audience questions. This week's questions are really good. First one's from Lee. Lee says, "Do you have a frightening childhood experience that has affected you into adulthood?" There's one in particular that I can think of, which is I generally don't like medical stuff. I don't like videos of medical procedures. I don't like any of it. And I remember being 7 or 8 years old and walking by the living room, and this was when TLC, the Learning Channel, I don't know if they used to be the Learning Channel. Now it's just TLC or vice
Mhm.
versa. Anyway, that channel. Now it's a lot of reality shows and like house programs and stuff like that. It used to be they used to show medical procedures and surgeries. And once my dad was watching some kind of eye procedure and eye surgery, and it freaked me out so bad that I remember getting very nauseous. And it wasn't something I was supposed to see. I just kind of walked by. I think it was later at night. I came out of my room or something like that. And when I think about, I don't know if that was actually the catalyst. When I think about now my just distaste for any medical stuff and just anxiety around medical issues and stuff like that, I think back to that, and I think back to visiting my grandfather in the hospital after he had had a relatively minor heart attack, from what I recall, and just really hating the whole vibe. And I know most people probably don't like hospitals or medical facilities, but I think that for me, it's something that has really affected me as an adult still.
I've actually undergone two pretty major surgeries, and
Mm.
I've offered to show you the video clips for them in the
Yeah.
past, but you're just not willing to see them. They're not
Yeah.
even that invasive.
I have no interest in that. Do you want to say what the procedures were?
Not so much.
Okay, all right. Well, we'll talk about that later. Okay, so yeah, I mean that I certainly remember that. Another one that I sort of remember is when I got to the United States and going to school, and I didn't speak any English, so I couldn't understand what anybody was saying. And I think that although now I'm perfectly comfortable traveling to countries where I don't understand the language, and I sort of find it interesting to spend 3 months on Duolingo or Rosetta Stone trying to get some understanding of a new language, I still remember the sort of feeling of not knowing what the hell is going on, which for me in great part was because I didn't speak the language.
Well, I think now you're just in a very good position knowing both English and Spanish because
Mm,
those are both very international languages that if people aren't native speakers of, they may have that as their second language. So you're
sure.
in a very good position, especially to go to places like Europe.
Yeah, I mean, and not only that, because even people who don't speak English in Europe, if you go to Italy or France or Portugal, you're going to have a very easy time if you speak Spanish fluently, and at minimum, figuring out what the signs say and having, basic conversation, particularly in Italy and Portugal.
Yeah, and if that doesn't work, you can always resort to drawing pictures or something else.
Yeah, I actually have friends who, when they went to China, they got drawings, not drawings, characters, Chinese characters, so that they could hold them up to communicate certain things. Like they were vegetarian, so they had
Yeah.
signs which were like, "I am vegetarian. Please bear in mind that even if you give me just vegetables, it might be cooked in meat broth, and the meat broth makes it not vegetarian." Which ended up being super useful because they would go to a lot of restaurants, and were it not for the clarification in Chinese characters that somebody wrote up for them, they would have been in a real trouble.
When I was in Portugal, I tried to go to this breakfast place and tried to order eggs because it was a few years ago before I was vegan and all else. And so first I used the English word, hoping they would know the word eggs. Didn't work. Then I moved on to the Spanish word, thinking, they're right next to Spain,
Yeah,
huevos, they should be able to understand that.
yeah.
Also didn't work. I just left the place. I wasn't going to deal with it.
Yeah, there's another thing, which is that I've been told that for historical reasons, in Portugal, they don't like it when you try to speak in Spanish to them.
Yeah.
So when I went there, even though I knew we could easily communicate if I spoke Spanish and they spoke Portuguese, when I couldn't communicate in Portuguese, I would just speak English because I was told it's sort of considered off-putting.
If you look at a map of which states are more bilingual in Europe, it's really not places like Portugal or Spain or
Yeah.
England or Scotland. It's more of the central part of Europe.
Yeah. All right. Well, in any case, those are my thoughts on that.